What happened to Amy Bradley? Out of the all cases I've followed in the unresolved mystery category, this is the one I keep coming back to, and I am sure most regular readers and posters here are quite familiar with it. Amy was 23 years old at the time of her disappearance in March 1998. She was on a cruise with her parents and brother and went missing shortly before the ship docked in Curaçao. She was last seen in the company of ship's band member Alistair Yellow Douglas. The ship was searched but no trace was found. There were subsequent sightings of Bradley in Curaçao in August 1998 and January 1999. In the 1998 sighting, a Canadian tourist described her tattoos and said one of the men minding her was yellow. In the 1999 sighting, an off-duty U.S. Navy officer said she identified herself to him and asked for help. This took place in a brothel which was off-limits to Navy personnel, so the officer waited until he was out of the Navy before reporting the sighting, by which time the brothel had gone and there was no trail to follow. There were further sightings in April 2003 and March 2005. In the 2003 sighting, she was in Fisherman's Wharf, San Francisco, being flanked by some men who whisked her away when it seemed she may have been recognized. The March 2005 sighting occurred in a department store bathroom in Barbados, where she was being harassed by some men and allegedly identified herself to a female American tourist. Photos of a woman suggested to be Amy also appeared on a website offering escort services, which lend credence to the theory she was targeted for human trafficking, but the main theory is she is being used as some kind of mule, but by whom and for what? No one is quite sure. Yellow has since found religion convenient, excuse my cynicism, and refuses to talk about what happened. He has a YouTube page for his gospel music, and literally every comment on his clips asks what happened to Amy Bradley. He seems to be the key to this case. For a long time it seemed that the case had gone cold and her missing person page disappeared from the FBI website for a time, but a while ago it appeared again, along with age progression photos added of what she may look like now. Anyone who is interested in the case should look up the episode of Vanished, available on YouTube, which covered the details of her disappearance and the subsequent search. I hope one day Amy's parents will get some closure on this case. This is one I keep coming back to, hoping there is some good news.
They aren't going to go around kidnapping upper-middle-class white women for sex slavery off of cruise ships when there are millions of women who will do that without the risk. It seems that every time a young woman goes missing, there is at least one family member that claims they are still alive and being held in some kind of sex slavery situation, yet we almost never see actual cases where this happens.
I think it's more likely something happened between her and Yellow, argument, attempted assault, etc., and he either accidentally killed her, or thought he had, and threw her overboard, or she got pushed overboard.
Or she was drunk and fell overboard.
Let's pretend we are the kidnappers, we grab Amy on this ship, or have some guy grab her for us. We do the deal and then we discover that there is an international search for this woman. We are talking FBI and Interpol here, and she also has distinct tattoos, making it that much harder to hide her. We still decide that she is worth the risk, even though, as morbid it is to say this, she is merely an average-looking woman. You can find better-looking women in the swamps of Florida, that nobody would care about if they went missing since they are dirt poor. We then keep her, and devote one of our thugs to keep a 24-hour watch on her for decades. It is so watertight, that Amy never has a chance to ask anyone to borrow their phone, or computer, or tablet, or whatever. Even the men who pay to sleep with her, because of course that is always the conclusion to every case on this subreddit, sex slavery, have their phones taken from them by the thug, or maybe he is there in the bedroom watching them. So she never has a chance to even use one for 30 seconds. Additionally, we take her internationally, and even bring her back to the States, cause why not? And even till this day, in 2017, where Amy is in her mid-40s by now, she is so valuable on the escort market in her age, that she is still kept around and is making money for her cartel overlords. This is so implausible and unlikely that it is practically comical. The reality is that Amy drinking too much and falling off to her death is just boring, and it also places blame on her for her own death. And nobody wants that to be the conclusion, because there is no drama to it, or any interesting facets to explore. True crime should be about exploring real-life cases, not about some extension of your own television set. If you want drama and juicy, watch TV dramas. My advice is to look at every case here and put yourself in the kidnapper/killer/wrongdoer's shoes. See what makes sense. Because do not confuse unethical, immoral and downright evil behavior with stupidity.
The Taken-style kidnappings of white suburban Western women into sex slavery is a myth on par with the satanic panic stories involving child abuse in the 1980s. There is zero credible evidence to support this theory, and no actual confirmed cases where a Western woman was forcibly entered into the sex trade. Amy Bradley likely fell off of her cruise ship, or perhaps was pushed off the cruise ship and died. The sightings after the fact are malarkey. Eyewitness testimony and sightings are generally not the best evidence and are especially useless when the people who have visited the person have never seen the missing person before. You have a handful of sightings by tourists off of a missing poster they may have seen. In any high-profile case where someone disappears, law enforcement is eye.
This is the case that got me into this sub, and I looked at it again recently. Listen to the Gen Y episode again and I think I agree with those guys. I think the Vanished episode had some really intriguing sightings which for a newcomer to the case would sway your thinking. I still can't explain those sightings other than the Bradley family having a lot of reward money that they were throwing around. Being dragged into sexual slavery just doesn't add up if you look into it. Why abduct her from a cruise? Also, she wasn't amazingly good looking. Let's abduct this girl, she'll make us good money. Sorry, no. Amy didn't even want to go on the cruise because, whilst a good swimmer, she didn't like the open sea. I just cannot see her falling overboard by accident for this reason. My conclus.
I believe that in a documentary I saw on it, the father said that he saw her awake on her balcony the morning of the disappearance. She was sitting down looking towards the sunrise. Then he left to go back to bed or get ready. When he came back, she was gone. I'm sure there's many ways to disappear on a cruise ship, but if she was last seen on the balcony only accessible by people who had access to the room, then I think the most logical conclusion is that she fell off right then and later witness accounts of her in the elevator may have been false. With Yellow not cooperating, it makes it difficult to know for sure.
I don't think she fell overboard. The average height of railings on a cruise ship is about 4 feet. Amy was 5 feet 6 inches, so she would have had to climb up on the rails in order to fall overboard, otherwise physics are against it. The eyewitness accounts are of varying credibility, but David Carmichael's was quite compelling and he had no interest in the reward money for information. He is interviewed on the Vanished episode. He is interviewed